Hello geographers and welcome to this coast lesson today about erosional landforms. Today we're going to focus on headlands and bays and have a look at the skill of field sketches. Coasts are constantly changing and one key process is erosion, and we're going to have a look at what that can create in our coastline. For today's lesson you're going to need a pen, a pencil, ruler and paper. In a second I'm going to ask you to pause and take a moment to get those and clear away all those distractions around you. Alternatively, you might choose to move to a quieter place where you won't be disturbed today. Pause now and I'll see you back in a second. Brilliant, let's get started. Can you write the title please? So erosional landforms, headlands and bays at the top of your piece of paper and underline it for me. Right, okay. So we're going to start today by looking at what factors influence coastal landforms. There are two factors that influence coastal landforms. The first one we're going to talk about is the rock type. Some rocks are more resistant to erosion than others. That means they don't erode away as easily. Rocks like chalk and limestone form cliffs as they are more resistant to erosion. Softer rocks like clays and sands are more easily eroded, so often would form bays. Mass movement will also vary on the rock type, and we've looked at the fact that there is sliding, slumping and rockfall. Here we can see a cliff that has had rockfall. So it's quite a hard rock type because we can see that that cliff is very steep. The second factor that influences coastal landforms is geological structure. This can include how the rock layers are folded or tilted, or whether they've got lots of joints and faults, which would allow them to erode more rapidly. There are also concordant and discordant coastlines that create specific landforms, and we're going to look at those in more depth. Here you can see you've got a cliff which has got two rock types right next to each other. So which rock type is more likely to erode the fastest? 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. It is clays. So clays are soft, they're likely to erode much faster. How do headlands and bays form? We've got a lovely picture on the left-hand side of headlands and bays. It looks a very beautiful area. You have got one headland in the centre of that photo, and the headland is the large piece of land that is stuck out to the sea. If we look to the back of the image, you can see a second headland in the distance. In between the two headlands at the front, there is a wide sandy beach. Headlands form on a discordant coastline. If you look at the diagram on the right, there is dark grey rock, which is soft, and then there are 3 strips of light grey rock, which in this example would be the hard rock that gets left as headlands. So a discordant coastline. Can you jot this down for me? A discordant coastline is where bands of different rock type run perpendicular to the coastline. So they are at right angles to the coastline. We've seen our image of a discordant coastline where the rock type are perpendicular to the coast. Concordant is the opposite. Here, the rock bands run parallel to the coast. So we have discordant coast where they're at right angles and perpendicular, concordant where they run parallel. So discordant coastlines have bands of rock which run. 5 seconds to make your choice. It is perpendicular to the coastline. How did you get on? Which one is the discordant coastline? Make your choice now. Jot it down, A or B. It is B. So A is what type of coastline? Tell me out loud. Concordant. B is the discordant. How do headlands and bays form? Let's go through it step by step. So headlands and bays form on a discordant coast. Destructive waves erode the coast through processes like abrasion. Hydraulic action would also occur. Differential erosion occurs. So the soft rock erodes faster, creating bays. So that soft rock retreats back as the waves abrade the cliff. The hard rock does still erode, so be careful not to get that wrong in your writing, but the hard rock erodes much slower and it remains jutting out, creating headlands. So if we look at those diagrams from start to finish, there are bands of rock perpendicular to the coastline, which we call discordant. Destructive waves are responsible for erosion, so they erode the coast through processes like abrasion. Differential erosion occurs, so differential erosion is erosion at different rates. That soft rock erodes much faster, creating bays. The hard rock is much slower to erode, so remains jutting out, creating headlands. Your turn. Headlands and bays form on which type of coastline? 5 seconds. Easy. So discordant, well done. Bays form in which rock type? 3, 2, 1. Soft rock. The soft rock erodes faster and retreats, creating a bay. We're going to have a quick look at the Dorset coastline. So Swanage is located on a discordant coastline. Swanage Bay is on light grey rock, and if we look at the key, it shows that that is soft rock of clay and sand. Each side of Studland Bay, Swanage Bay, is hard rock. You have Ballard Point, which is on yellow. So Ballard Point is on a chalk hard rock. Dalston Head is on a limestone band of hard rock. That diagram matches up to the picture. If we have a look at the limestone at Dalston Head, we can see in this photo that you have the headland there. You then have the chalk hard rock stuck out in the background of this picture. You can see the white cliffs creating Ballard Point. The soft rock, however, which would have been in the middle, has retreated back to create Swanage Bay, which is hidden behind Dalston Head. In geography, field sketches is a really important skill. So we've got this picture, it's a view across Dalston Head. Let's have a look at what that would look like as a field sketch. So with a field sketch, always start with an outline box. It's only a sketch, it needs to be just the outline. It doesn't need to be a work of art, which is pretty lucky because otherwise I'd have no chance. Use a pencil and draw lightly. If you draw too hard, it's hard to erase those lines afterwards. So the first thing I've noticed is this vegetation down in the corner. So I'm going to draw that on gently. I'm going to have to go slightly harder so you can see, but you can put it on gently. Then we've got the cliffs that go from roughly halfway all the way over to the edge and disappear behind that vegetation. This is our first headland. And that headland isn't that tall. We can't see over the other side of it, and it gets increasingly taller as we go over to the other side. Then we've got our second headland in the background. It starts around the same place, but it's more cliff-like. So if I draw darker so you can see, I'm then going to draw my next line, and it comes over behind this other headland. I'm going to draw over the top of the cliffs, so they get gradually taller. And then from these ones, you can see that we start to see some grass. I'm just going to add in another line to show that that's 3D. And at the end, I can see some bits of rock kind of stuck off. Finally, right in the background, I can see some land behind. So that's what I can see. Now I need to add some labels. So at the front I had vegetation. I've got my first headland. And what I've noticed actually, looking at this diagram now I look, is actually all the way along the bottom of this headland, there's a very narrow rocky beach. I'm going to put that on. So narrow, rocky beach. So adjectives help clarify, and I'm going to put an arrow because I wasn't able to write on that bit. This section here was cliffs. These were tall, steep cliffs. You can see they're a different rock type. Tall, steep cliffs. It's our second headland. And then these rocks on the end, we'll find out later on, but I'm going to call them stacks. So we've got stacks of rock here. In between two headlands, we have a bay. And I think I'm just going to name this the sea. So here's the finished article because it was quite tricky to see. A very simple drawing. It's just the outline with geographical labels. Now it's your turn. I would like you, in your pencil, geographers always draw in a pencil, to draw an annotated field sketch of this photo. Success criteria. It will be simple. You'll put in any relevant detail and you will use labels to identify geographical features. Pause now and then resume when you're done. Right, how did you get on? Here's my attempt. It's a simple sketch. You get a mark. I don't want a work of art. It takes too long. Have you got headlands labelled? Ideally 2. Do you have bay labelled? Again, ideally 2. Did you spot the cliffs? And did you spot the wide sandy beach? You may have other labels, but please make sure you've got those 4. Field sketches then can be useful in lots of different ways. You don't need specialised equipment to do one. They can be done quickly. They've got some drawbacks as well. They only represent one moment in time. So if you're drawing a sketch of a very busy beach, well, that might be a one-off. You may miss vital details. There might be something you didn't spot when you were doing your drawing. And it can show bias. What you draw and what you put on paper may not have actually been the reality. Big task now for you. So with reference to the photo, explain how erosional landforms can be created along the coast. So hopefully now you'll be able to tell me which 2 landforms you can see in this image. Tell me now out loud. Yes, we've got 2 headlands and we've got 2 bays. So with reference to this photo, explain how headlands and bays can be created along the coast. To be successful in this task, I would like you to include these following words in your answer: differential erosion, destructive waves, abrasion, headland, hard rock, bay, soft rock, and discordant. Ideally, you'll be able to tackle this task yourself. If you'd like a little bit of extra support, after the pause sign comes up, just wait a few seconds and there will be some sentences to support your writing. Good luck. Try and tackle it yourself first. I'll see you when you're done. Right, how did you get on? Let's have a look. So, explain how erosional landforms can be created along the coast. The photo shows headlands and bays have formed on a discordant coastline, which is bands of hard and soft rock. Can you please highlight or tick the word discordant? Destructive waves erode the coastline through processes like abrasion. You might have had hydraulic action too. Due to differential erosion, the soft rock erodes at a faster rate, creating bays. The harder rock erodes more slowly and so is left jutting out to sea as headlands. So go through, make sure you've got all those words in pink. Well done for tackling that task. That brings us to the end of today's lesson. We've learned about headlands and bays and we've practiced having a go at a field sketch. Remember, bays form in the soft rock and headlands form on the harder rock which erodes at a slower pace. We learned that was called differential erosion. Right, to ensure our coastal knowledge doesn't retreat and that we make headway in our learning, I need you to click on the next page and spend a few minutes completing that quiz so I can see what you've learned today. Thank you so much for your time. Take care, and I look forward to you joining me as we move on to our next erosional landform, which is going to be wave cut platforms. Have a really good day.